Hello, hello there, America. My name is Stephen Leon, and thank you for the GCD Network for hosting this in my third podcast here. I am running for Congress in Virginia's 8th district. That's the first district west of DC. So lots going on, lots going on. I'd like to thank the previous speaker. This podcast is about artificial intelligence, guns, and more. We've had a lot of things happen with gun violence, gun crime. There's a lot of things on the left. Again, this podcast is called From the Left. I'm running as an independent for the House of Representatives, but I do have a bias to the left. But my take on guns and gun crime is, at first I was looking at this and we're seeing assault weapons and they're scary. They're mostly for sport. You know what I mean? Let's take one of my favorite examples to use is take Amendment 18. The right to drink and sell in a lot of there are people that can't drink, okay, and that's like a very small portion of people. So people still have the right to drink. So when it comes to guns and things like that, even assault weapons, it's not going to pass on the right to get rid of assault weapons. And most gun crime is not committed by assault weapons. Everyone knows that. So when I see stuff like that on the left, I'm like, it's not going to pass. You're just giving. What are the real solutions? What are the root causes that are going on there? And that's clearly socioeconomics. A lot of it's there's hate, but essentially a lot of gun crime happens just from neighborhood beef. You know what I mean? And people get wrapped up in neighborhood beef because they're not wanting to work. Why work when wages are down or whatever? That's not an excuse. I mean, I get it. It's tough. You know what I mean? It's very common in Latino families to stay home until you're married. I moved out in my late 30s. I got a career. I got lucky with that. And there's a lot of people that wherever, whatever the demographic may be, you know what I mean? You see this stuff. So we need to improve socioeconomics. That's on my plan. I'm going to share my screen in a moment. You can go through my website and go through it and just be patient and read it because it's new. It's new and useful stuff. It's not, I don't use a lot of key terms that are just thrown out there from either side. Just read it and have an open mind. You'll see it'll start to click. Just like with anything, any new task or anything like that, we learn through repetition. And that's just how it is. So AI, artificial intelligence. I mentioned that because that's a pretty big thing. My biggest concern is that AI would be used to replace jobs, right? And that would create this dystopian kind of reality where, even worse than it is now, where let's say 20% of the worldwide jobs are eliminated because of the creative destruction of jobs, right? So what's going to happen here in the United States, people are going to be dependent on the system, right? So we need to do something, but what? How do you do that? Now, my opponent here, Don Beyer, is all about artificial intelligence. He's currently taking a master's degree on it, and he thinks he's using that as promotion. I find him as a sleazy car salesman. He's just one of those. I recently posted this on social media. You just Google what to look out for, and there's like 5 things, and he's perfect unless he accepts my special debate request. You know what I mean? I have my bias on the left, but there's also someone on the right there too. Anyway, so the artificial intelligence, we saw the things with Taylor Swift. You know what I mean? We've seen things. Some of that stuff is actually funny. There's a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger things that are coming around. Hilarious. Oh man, great. I'm a big Nirvana fan. I like all music, but growing up in the 90s, kind of the whole alternative lifestyle grunge stuff. Wow, I got misty when I heard him do the AI thing of Everlong, the acoustic version. I was like, whoa, like that was a whole, and I know it's not real, you know what I mean? But it is and it isn't, right? So the AI thing, you will see that we don't want it to eliminate jobs, but how do you do that? How do you do that especially when you have an unregulated kind of capitalistic? I'm all about capitalism. I'm totally, but just we need to have moderate regulation for it. So my opponent will say that we just have to adapt, just like we've done with anything else, whether if it's agriculture, any new thing. But he's not even going to try, right? And one idea that I'm putting out there with AI is to hand it over to the IT departments. Have every organization has an IT department. Some smaller companies might outsource them or they do it themselves, right? But we're not worried about that. We're worried for like big companies, and maybe, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. Maybe I don't know, an organization with maybe over 200 people, even 20, you know what I mean? Like, so I work at a law firm and there's 30 people in that smaller law firm. So if they were, I mean, I've never talked to them about it, and I'm completely impartial with, with my employer with all this stuff. So, you know what I mean? I imagine, I would hope that there would be, if we were to do anything efficient, to have an IT department do that. And that could be outsourced, and just to make our jobs a little efficient. There are some things with our docketing software that we can automate, but we still need a human being to check through that stuff. And if you look at it, AI is just as fallible as human beings, just as fallible. We see that. So yeah, we definitely don't want there's some things that the government is doing to protect their interests, our interests as far as elections go. Great, you know what I mean? And we don't, I mean, we're pretty reasonable. We don't tie our AI into, you know, our nuclear weapons and just automate that and have there be, you know what I mean? Anyways, denuclearization is a part of my platform. That of course, just like with everything of that, whether we're developing or trying to move stuff back from that, it's always incremental phases. So now AI and guns don't really relate to one another so much, but I just thought it was important that that's something big, that if we don't take care of the AI thing, it's just going to happen slowly in pockets. And I mean, I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but we should still try. You know what I mean? We have to get the language down. If we want to protect jobs, then it should be, an entity would need to regulate that to where if there's like existing employers that want to use it, then it needs to be, it can be done. It can be done. The trick is to just get enough people to support that. If we want to protect our jobs, that's what we need to do. And if there's any other ideas, I'm more than welcome to listen to them and all that. So and going back to guns, socioeconomic improvements, I have a thing. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. Let's see if we can do that. And just bear with me because of my security settings again. And oh, bummer. I have to quit and I can't do that. All right, again, next time, I'll make sure to have my security settings, but it's not that difficult to guide you through this. The leonforcongress.us. Go to the first item right there, American Anti-Corruption Act. So go ahead and read this out to you. According to the nonpartisan organization Represent Us, approximately 90% of their polling shows, backtrack. It's the second item, American Capitalism Protection Act. The American Anti-Corruption Act is still a pretty big deal because if you want to talk about draining the swamp, it's not about eliminating federal departments that want to hold you accountable. That is not what the swamp is. Go look at the HBO documentary. The swamp is getting money out of politics. I'll go ahead and finish that. I'll brief real quick with the American Anti-Corruption Act is 70% of legislators or anyone in elected office, as soon as they get in office, they spend 70% of their time just tap dancing around whatever it is, their ideologue on the left or the right, and then just asking for money. And they do that as soon as they get elected, and only 30% of their time is there to legislate. Then there's some other things that they need to be reformed on both sides, why they stalemate, if it's just something unconstitutional per Amendment 1, or if it's taking us socialist, right? Again, all part of my plan how to resolve that. But if we want to improve socioeconomics, if we want to see gun crime go down with those numbers, it's the best we can do. I wish we could, in a perfect world, we would be, you know, perfect angels or whatever. Things happen. I don't support any kind of violence or anything like that. But with the American Capitalism Protection Act, America's rapid growth in the later part of the past century has left many economically insecure to no fault of their own. This legislation plans to increase wages by mitigating corporate profiteering without hindering progress or suppressing innovation by mandating CEO salary caps, truck driving industry tax breaks, price gouging limitations, and stronger antitrust enforcement. Many of these items have been adopted from the work of Robert Reich, who was Bill Clinton's labor secretary. Ending government shutdowns is another feature which benefits federal employees. This legislation will have nothing but positive effects on consumer spending, saving, and investing, which improves housing circumstances. So we don't need to rely on the government to fix our problems, and we can just make slight tweaks, moderate tweaks to the private sector, and then it will balance out. This would be a system-wide socioeconomic revival and coincides the Gross Domestic Product Protection Act from my presidential campaign. If you've done some research, I started off running for president, roll the dice on a new guy. Protecting capitalism from itself without hindering progress, equal opportunity, or imposing excess taxation is a founding principle from which our Constitution is inherited of Madisonian doctrine. So when I'm talking about CO salary caps, we have things that are going on right now where we're totally okay with having, look at the analogous dynamic of what we do with Social Security and child tax credits. You know, for certain people that qualify, where everyone qualifies for Social Security, some people don't need it because they have that much money, right? So, but we do moderate tax at the bottom and at the top, right? We do that through our taxing, and there was a really cool development. I attended this bipartisan policy center on LinkedIn. I've been following them for a while, and they came up with a federal taxpayer receipt, and that is a conglomeration between Intuit, the company that does the e-file taxes. You know, if you look into them, I saw them on Facebook, and someone just completely nixed them. I would guess that they would probably be on the left right away. I'm assuming here, I could be wrong, but it just looked like the way that there was something that Intuit had done with false advertising. And I get that, you know what I mean? Like, did someone, does it change the data? If you go to this federal tax receipts, this federal taxpayer receipt, just Google that, right? And then you'll see that the link is like balancingact.us. Just Google it and you'll see Intuit federal taxpayer receipt. You can put in, let's say you paid $5,000 in federal tax. It'll show you where everything goes. Right at the top is healthcare, and that's insurance premiums. You know what I mean? That's another part of my plan with healthcare. Again, if you look at my website, you'll see how we can revise the Affordable Care Act to benefit patients than the insurance companies, but keeping the Affordable Health Care Act intact, but making that title indicative to what's in the law. And I take that language indicative to the claims. It's patent law. That's what I do. Intellectual property, whatever titles that come in there. You can't just create an Inflation Reduction Act, right? And then have it not do that and then start telling everyone that, look, the IRA worked when it was mostly from consumer spending. So if you go to that federal taxpayer receipt, you can see what you're paying in taxes. And then going back to the American Capitalism Protection Act, in the dynamic of having, so we have minimum wages. We have federal minimum wages, we have state minimum wages, and then we also have but there's nothing at the top that's stopping. And immediately people would probably be like, oh, well, we don't want to go socialist. You can't just, you know what I mean? But where do you draw the line? With unregulated capitalism, where do you, if that's farmland, if that's if you're working for any white collar or blue collar environment, what is to stop them from just all these excess profits? And it's been a problem. And there are polls out there. It wouldn't be that easy. So let's just the outline is there, and that's basically what my job mostly is to do. Whether if it's running for the House or if it's president, is to make sure that those fundamental principles are protected. And then all that minutia, all the law, it has to accord to that, right? So through a majority of what the people want. So again, in that constitutional democratic republic, there we are. So with CO salary caps, let's say, and again, I get a lot of this from Robert Reich, who was Bill Clinton's labor secretary. We loved, he was one of the he was one of the very popular bipartisan president. He took us off some, some of the FDR stuff that separated banks. He got that removed, and sorry, my cat is. So, anyways, and that benefited home ownership to some degree. It's a whole other discussion what happened with the subprime mortgage crisis. So Robert Reich is talking. I don't support everything that Robert Reich is talking about, and let me go back what I was to the federal taxpayer receipt thing, where somebody was on there and they called them out for it. Does it change the data? Like, let's say with 3M sold faulty ear devices to the military, and they joked about it, how much it was costing, how much they were charging, and how much it cost to make. Right, that person was fired, and then 3M is still in business. Right, that was around the time when they were you're making face masks and stuff, and you can do that with any organization. Someone at Starbucks can say some anti-Semitic things, and then you can't hold the entire entity responsible for that. And that's the same with the federal government. It's the same with ourselves. You know what I mean? You can't just because you see one little thing, that doesn't change the dynamic. Let's say in this case with that taxpayer receipt, does it change the data? Are they trying to streamline us? So I could have argued with her on social media about that stuff. I see this stuff all the time. I pick my moments. But again, with CEO salary caps, yeah, what we would want to do is let's say a threshold. It wouldn't apply to all entities. It would be something, a corporation with stock that was over, $500 million in profits. You know what I mean? And then you would take any that you would distribute it to the employees themselves and their 401k. So we're talking about the biggest corporations that make the money. That's the problem here. And they would also have another safeguard that they couldn't try to offset that from price gouging mitigation. Because the consumers, the better number of the economy is not from Bidenomics. Everyone knows this. They just keep trying to spin that, and I'm really like, it's mostly from consumer spending. We kept spending, and whether we, if you get into the consumer psychology and ask them, do you like that or not? They're going to say no. You know what I mean? But there is a buzz to spending. Well, we also want to save, and the American Capitalism Protection would do that. It wouldn't apply to LLPs. Like, let's say where I work for, there's no CEOs there. There's no stock. I've said this before in previous podcasts. So in a nutshell, that's basically, with that socioeconomic revival, more people will be inclined to work. More people would be inclined. J6, that was illegal, and the protest itself, people that were actually protesting, if you look at the numbers, most people were protesting peaceful, but there was crimes committed. You know what I mean? But a lot of those people are socioeconomically depressed. You know what I mean? There's things going on, and unfortunately, Trump just straight up lied to them, said that he would drain the swamp, and he didn't, and he kept on blaming Democrats. And there are people on the Democratic side that have a lot of money and just pushing the ideologue, not questioning it, especially on the left. Very, very timid folks. Everything is in it. Whether they are not saying anything, we don't know because we just vote, and that's a scary thing, and it's just going to keep things at stalemate. So, yeah, I mean, I could go on about how my platform is better than everybody else's, but just go in there and look at it. A couple of things that happened that were pretty noteworthy that happened to my campaign was, I'm not playing victim here. I just think it's funny. So I got on one state ballot. I got on the Nevada state ballot. I started running for president in January of 2022. And I just saw how things were going, and I just stayed on top of everything. You know what I mean? And while maintaining my day job, and so I do my best to look for donations and just to hold on to that day job and just attend to things in my life, and then do all that. It just not enough was happening in September. By this past September, so that's why I decided to run for the House and push it that way. Might be a little more easier. Start small, and so I went through. So easy to get on the presidential preferential ballot that they have there. They're one of I think it's like 35 states that have that. It's like a pre-primary or something like that. So I got on their ballot and I submitted my photo, and they put the wrong photo on. And I was like, well, that's a pretty big deal. Like, if you don't know who I am and you go to if that photo was posted before they did that election, right? Like, I think it said my name. It's got some dude, Stephen Allen on it. I thought that there's another candidate named Stephen Lyons. So I can understand the mix-up, but they didn't correct it. So, you know what I mean? Like, depending on if they had put that out, how long that photo had been there would determine the possibility of different numbers. They might have been more or less. So I wouldn't have won. I get that. They just give it to Biden. But everyone voted for Biden on that. I think he got like 50,000. I don't know what it was. So, but still, you know what I mean? Out of principle, no, I haven't heard back from the Nevada Secretary of State. That was funny. It was like, wow, throw a dog a bone. I mean, you should. That's a big deal. I mean, what if I wanted to be like, hey, look, at least I got 88 votes. Well, those aren't accurate because it's got someone's face. Yeah. So wow. The best I can do is make it soon. I could. And have to take time out of my day and probably have to fly to Nevada, Vegas. Maybe it's just not worth my time. So with that, I'm surprised I was able to cover. I got 10 more minutes here. Um, First thing that's coming to my head is how are we going to unify? How are we going to get things together there? How are we going to um, if you look at my agenda and you try to understand really that I really think that it's 80% of the people see it this way, and then it's for whatever reason, if you're on the far left or right, the 10% on each side is just fighting it, and they're probably the loudest voices. Um, but yeah, I'm just skimming through my X feed and seeing what's anything noteworthy. Kind of, I mean, I go after people that I go after people that have holes in their ideology, what they're representing. I see, I repost, I cited a Politico thing this morning. Biden's top man on the opioid epidemic has created a toxic environment. I came up with the Open Up the Schools program. That is to reduce demand. There is no war on drugs. There never was. You know what I mean? It was just around the time of LBJ, Nixon, and so forth. They just took that, and that's a war on people. You know what I mean? So we really want to we want to reduce demand, but how do you do that? You know, so Open Up the Schools is something that was birthed here in Arlington. I attended a Democrat caucus, and they were talking about using Narcan and how to like every student to have that. Wow, really? Like that's a lot. You know, in your backpack, every child has that in case, and it's probably only like what I'm just guessing here, like maybe 10 possible students out of one middle school or maybe one high school. That's still a lot. But for every student to do that, rather than just open up the schools, I talked to the person that founded the idea, Janeth Venezuela, I think, and she had taken it to the board here in Arlington. They said it's not going to work, and that disappoints me. You're not even going to try. You know what I mean? Like you can get volunteers. We can. Why don't you ask Don Beyer? He's got what? How much money does he have? $124 million. Just suppose he can't create some kind of fundraiser or something like that to help open up the schools. And the idea of that is to kind of like this wouldn't be special ed. It would be met without stigma and recognize that you know whether you're starting to show signs of these things, and if it's genetic environment choice. I know some of the most prominent people we've ever known have struggled with alcoholism or addiction or not. So it's just something genetic that's in there under, again, or just choice. It's just fun until it becomes not. And so you would open up the schools and you would have some extended learning on it, make it fun. You know, maybe you would even have celebrities endorse it. If the Just Say No program worked, I wouldn't be entertaining this conversation. No one would. It just didn't work. Just say no. It's just not that simple. You know what I mean? So you really need to get kids to commune with each other and get them to relate, and then start to get them. Maybe that could help them do their homework. I want to keep it autonomous, but just again that fundamental principle, whatever it is, that would, if it's just a couple hours, you know, after school, that could help parents. A lot of these parents maybe single. You know what I mean? They just need that extra help, and it just to get them off the street. And even then, that you might raise the question, well, you're getting these kids who are addicted to drugs and you're putting them together in one room. What do you expect is going to happen? If you meet it with sobriety, if you meet it with that extra attention that they need and start to show them just whatever that might be, whatever creative ways, you know, I know that just the use of technology, how that helps us understand things. If it was during slavery, we saw how the pictures of how that went and that affected people. We've all seen World War II on the History Channel. Like if we didn't have that stuff, like just imagine what in a way it's like scaring them straight. But also like you never know who might be able to, what could birth out of just opening up the schools, or if it's just a couple hours, just to focus on that. You know what I mean? Because later what's going to happen fundamentally, it's the loneliness that gets kids, and then as they grow into adults. And you know what I mean? It's all part of that socioeconomic development that I'm talking about from from each item in my platform. It all ties in together. I've done presentations on it, and I look at this stuff very much in an innovative way. There's a thing on my, I've learned this a couple years ago that Lincoln was the only president to have a patent. I mentioned that before in a podcast. And I have one. It's just happenstance. But how he innovated things, you know what I mean? How and do it legally. Is kind of what I'm trying to inspire. That's what I'm bringing to the table here. I initially, I'm an inventorpreneur, so I'm not a politician. I'm not, but I understand to get ideas move forward. There, for the way the words can change. A politician is like saying personalities. It's like saying you just go after you just want to put Joe Biden's personality up there and say. To be fair, I think he's done. If anything, to grade him, he'd have a 30%, which is failing. If you were to do Donald Trump, he'd minus 30, which is extra failing, right? So we're all because they're just plain politics, just plain personalities. Who's smiling the best on camera? And they're all fake. There's just different measures of it. You know what I mean? And some that want to do better just don't have the voice to just stand there and say it. And I'm taking the initiative to just do that. I've always done that. Wherever I go, if I'm in church or something like that, and we're having a little discussion as we do, and no one's saying anything, I'll just raise my hand and I'll talk, right? Or and being careful not to cross that boundary. When you get people working together in circles, it can't just be that one person talking. It has to get everyone involved, and that's what I've done. There are people that. Jennifer Lawrence, she wouldn't work directly on my campaign, but she's a chairwoman of Represent Us in that American Anti-Corruption Act. So, that's cool. That's something you can trust to that. I do. You know what I mean? I see that. Here's a very talented artist that's putting her career, not even really putting her career in line. She's just doing something about it, right? And that's cool. And she's completely nonpartisan about it. I don't know what her politics are, where she votes. Nor is it really in my business, you know what I mean? So that's climate change has always probably been. I see all these things as equal priority, but climate change, if you look at it reasonably, if we don't take care of that, nothing else is going to matter. Like if you thought COVID was bad in socioeconomics and crime in general, it'll be bad. Unless we just create these moderate regulations to them. Let's see. It's a good one. Another thing with gun violence is among the improvements of a system-wide socioeconomics reformation of my platform, amending the Safer Communities Act to include empowering mental health mitigation for those clinically deemed of suicidal and homicidal ideation, which also parallels the Federal Extreme Risk Protection Order Act, which is out there. So if you got rid of assault weapons, if the left magically somehow got a majority to get rid of assault weapons, you're going to go into people's homes and just take them away. What would the process be with that? Now, I can understand not discharging a assault weapon in the city limits. That I understand. The liabilities, that makes sense. But if you possess one, you know what I mean? Like maybe it would have to be in a special case. That's not going to stop anybody from just blasting a place up. You know what I mean? But it might be enough to. Some people may or may not do things depending on what the laws are. But I think that's the best we can meet in the middle. You can't just. I've talked to people about this. You're just not going to get rid of them. Those are mostly sport. You know what I mean? And you know what? What if we want, to go ahead and empower people in rural-esque communities to have their assault weapons, that they're using it for sport? And what if one day, there's a president or a governor that may be like, hey, look, we're getting invaded, whether if it's a foreign nation or aliens or something. I know that's kind of odd to say. I'm out of time. I will get my podcast more up to speed here and have some more content that I can share. But thank you very much. Have a good night, and God bless you.